Shalom, beloved brothers and sisters. I am so happy to be making a video. It's been a little while and I needed some time to just listen to Abba and get some questions answered that I've had, so I needed to connect with him and just take some time off, and I feel like I've gotten a lot of the answers I needed. And first of all, though, I want to say thank you so much. You all are just such a wonderful group of people who have encouraged me incredibly with your kindness and comments and prayers for me and the things that you've said and all the kindness and love that you're giving to me. And I am so appreciative for your kindness. It does not go unnoticed. And it is such a beautiful thing to see that we have brothers and sisters out there. We are a family. We really are. And you know, Abba is calling us together to unite in a way that we have to understand His will and His ways and try to love one another despite our differences even. So we're going to take a look at the final test. What is the final exam of anyone's life? And we don't know when the end will come. We have no idea. People can speculate, but no one knows truly when that judgment will come upon our lives, the exam of our life, because no one is guaranteed tomorrow. So the exam comes when the exam comes, whether Yah cuts the days short or whether we have a tomorrow. Will we have that oil in our lamps? Will we be wise virgins and not foolish ones? Will we be awake at that time when it's time for inspection of our lives? And I do believe He is inspecting us, inspecting the fruits of His vineyard right now. And He's giving us a warning to stay awake and alert and make sure we're doing what we're supposed to do. So we're going to read the parable of the workers in the vineyard and apply this to our lives in terms of the final exam YahuWah has shown me that's placed upon us, and see if we'll pass that test. And if not, we need to really be diligent about working to make sure that we will pass inspection, and the inspection isn't exactly what we think it will be. But first off, and I would like to say that this video I don't have really planned out very well. So bear with me, and it's going to be a little imperfect, but that's okay. I'm going to let YahuWah, guide my words and the Ruach speak through me, because this is going to be pretty raw, pretty unscheduled kind of. I don't have it planned out. But I do know YahuWah's heart, and that's what I want to speak. But first of all, YahuWah is calling people to take a Nazarite vow with Him. If you've been thinking about taking a Nazarite vow with YahuWah, now is a good time. There's a spiritual war going on, and this is what YahuWah is showing me, is that He is calling a people to become even more set apart for His purposes. And that's what the Nazarite vow would be. So that's the first thing I want to talk about, is that pray about the Nazarite vow. Now, it's really important not to take a vow by anything, but if we take a vow to YahuWah, we better plan on keeping it. So it's better not to take a vow than to take it and not keep it. So in number 6, you can find some information about Nazarites, and other people have probably done wonderful studies on that. So I don't plan on going over the Nazarite vow right now. I can maybe later in another video, but it's something to be taken seriously. I believe YahuWah is raising a Gideon's army, if you will. And we know that this is a spiritual battle we're in. And so the forces of evil and darkness and the people who work for that kingdom, they're very serious about their craft and what they do. They're very serious about their spiritual walk, even though it's an evil one. And YahuWah needs some set apart people to be serious, to be even more set apart for Him. And just, it's a call for those who YahuWah places that on their heart. Maybe you've been thinking about it, pray about it, make sure that it's something that you understand the importance of it, because it's kind of like a front lines person in a spiritual battle, kind of like that Gideon's army. And in fact, we'll probably take a look at that in another video. I'll explain more about this, but right now I just want to put out the call for Nazarites and pray about it, look into it. It's a set apartness. There's, anointing that comes with it. We know we're in some serious times, and it's important to be about our Father's business. And it's men and women that can take the Nazarite vow. In Deuteronomy 23:21, it says, if you make a vow to YahuWah, do not be slow to keep it, because he will surely require it of you. And you will be guilty of sin, but if you refrain from making a vow, you will not be guilty of sin. Be careful to follow through on what comes from your lips, because you have freely vowed to YahuWah, your Elohim, with your own mouth. It's a serious thing to take the vow and not, understand the seriousness of it, and the amount of control of the tongue, and being able to use his words as a sword, but not to harm other people, but to deliver his words. We'll go into more of this and how important it is, but just pray about that. It's a call for Nazarites. I'm asking through YahuWah. He does deliver messages through his people, and so through me, he's asking us to put out a call for Nazarites. And I'm a little tiny channel, so this is about kingdom business. It's not about some little YouTube channel who, is trying to get out, get views or anything. This is kingdom business, and I'm asking you through YahuWah, who's telling me to put this call out to the people because we're in a spiritual battle. Either we raise up together, or we walk around in this wilderness another 40 years and die in the wilderness. We either learn to work together, or we die, struggling through it. And this is what YahuWah is showing me, the final exam. When he examines our lives, will we pass the test? Let's take a look at the parable of the workers in the vineyard and kind of apply it to this warning of being ready whenever he does examine our lives. Are we ready for the exam? Will we pass the test? This is so important. He has given us time and opportunity. He's given us warning to hear his heart. He is telling us, while the world is doing whatever they do and focused on all the other things, we're focused on YahuWah's business and what he has a calling for us to do, and staying awake like wise ones, that we're ready when that time comes. And so things are changing rapidly. We do not want to be asleep. We don't want to be asleep and not have plenty of oil in our lamps. And so let's be ready and wise. Let's read that parable and talk about what that has to do with the final exam that YahuWah is showing me, that I am able to share with all of you, which I feel like is such a barakah, such a favored thing, that he would give us these warnings that very, very few people will ever receive. This is a gift. I am so humbled and grateful that he will give us these warnings, because now we can really apply it and really put our diligence into making sure we pass our tests. And we know that if we build a house on sand and silt, it's just going to blow down and tear down, be torn down. We won't be able to withstand the whirlwinds and the storms of life and the things that are coming. So, let's take a look at that parable. The parable of the workers in the vineyard. For the kingdom of Shamayim, the heavens, is like the owner of an estate who went out early in the morning to hire workmen for his vineyard. After agreeing with the laborers for a denarius a day, he sent them into his vineyard. And going out about the 3rd hour, 9 o'clock, he saw others standing idle in the marketplace. And he said to them, "You go also into the vineyard, and whatever is right I will pay you." And they went. He went out again about the 6th hour, or noon, and the 9th hour, 3 o'clock, and he did the same. And about the 11th hour, 5 o'clock, he went out and found still others standing around and said to them, Why do you stand here idle all day? And they answered him, Because no one has hired us. And he told them, You go out into the vineyard also, and you will get whatever is just and fair. When evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his manager, Call the workmen and pay them their wages, beginning with the last and ending with the first. And they who had been hired at the 11th hour, 5 o'clock, came and received a denarius each. Now when the first came, they supposed they would get more, but each of them also received a denarius. And when they received it, they grumbled at the owner of the estate, saying, These who came last worked no more than an hour, and yet you have made them rank with us, who have borne the burden and the scorching heat of the day. But he answered one of them, Friend, I am doing you no injustice. Did you not agree with me for a denarius? Take what belongs to you and go. I choose to give to this man hired last the same as I gave to you. Am I not permitted to do what I choose with what is mine? Or do you begrudge my being generous? Is your eye evil because I am good? So those who now are last will be first then, and those who now are first will be last then. For many are called, but few are chosen. So this brings up interesting information about what YahuWah expects of us, the people who come in the last hour. What I've found is that if the heart is right, when we come into the vineyard, when we're hired in to YahuWah's vineyard, and we're supposed to do the work that he calls us to do, this is basically an agreement with YahuWah. This is an agreement. This is his covenant agreement. We agree to work in his vineyard. So this is where some people already, falter, who have been led astray by religion, is that they think that YahuWah's instructions have been done away with. But when we get hired in, he hires us in under instructions of how to work in the vineyard. So there's an expectation of us once we've been hired. So that's basically, he saves us from the world. He pulls us out of the pit. And you notice at the 5 o'clock hour, he's pulling people out. They've been there all day. They're tired. They're tired of being in the world. And YahuWah has mercy upon them. This is the thing that I notice, his mercy upon people. He has love for his children, even those coming in at the last hour. So at that point, you agree to work in his vineyard, and you agree to a set of conditions, which are his instructions, his Torah, and his word that comes from our Mashiach. That's the foundation of everything of working in his vineyard, because people say we're not saved by our works, but we are expected to work. Fourth commandment is to, work 6 days. This means spiritually, mentally, physically work, and then rest on the seventh. That's what that's what we're destined for. That's what he has built us for, is to do good works. And so we'll see that faith without obedience is dead. And so faith without works of obedience is dead. So when YahuWah hires us into the vineyard, and I just want to be clear on this first part, when he hires us into the vineyard, there's an agreement, a covenant, a contract, that we agree to terms and conditions which are his commandments. We agree to those conditions of working with one another, how we are to love YahuWah and how we are to love one another. And then that agreement, we all work that same way. So no one can say we're just saved by his grace and there's no expectation of our works to be done, because he calls us, once we make this agreement, that because he saved us, now we would be workers for his kingdom, and he would be our master, instead of Hasatan in the world, making us slaves to the flesh. Now we are, under YahuWah's control, and we put off the fleshly nature. And that's what we work on. That's the work we're called to do. putting off the flesh daily and allowing YahuWah to work in us his good will. So that's what this working is. It's a working on our own lives, our own fleshly nature. That's what we're told we have to do. Put off the old and put on the new, and be renewed by, transformed by renewing our minds daily. So there's this spiritual, mental, and physical work that's expected of us once we've been accepted into the kingdom. If anyone says that we don't have to obey the instructions, the keys to the kingdom are now taken away from us. You see, Mashiach gives us the keys to the kingdom once we make this agreement with YahuWah. And so we receive the keys. Whatever you bind on the arets, on the earth, must already be bound in the heavens. So that means it has to be in alignment with what the word says, because they agree. They must agree. So whatever you bind on earth must already be bound in the heavens. And whatever you loose on earth must already be loosed in the heavens. That means that we have to be in agreement with the word of YahuWah to understand how to clean up the vineyard, clean up our lives, clean up this garden that we're given, this plot of land we're given, which is our life. We're given the keys back to basically our room, our house in the kingdom. And he expects us to clean it up. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear, because once somebody says you don't have to clean up your garden, they just took away your keys and now you're in prison again. The people who think that we're just saved by our grace and we don't have to do any works to clean up our life, they just got their keys taken away by Satan again. They're bound in prison, spiritual prison. So understanding that when we work in the vineyard, when he hires us, we agree to terms and conditions before we get our keys to our room back, to the house, to the kingdom back. And we can lose those keys if we continually walk in sin, if we're not constantly trying to work on teshuvah, turning away from the fleshly nature and turning to his ways. If we continue to work, then that's why people feel separation from YahuWah, because they're not working on their spiritual life. In Revelation, it talks about lukewarm. You're either cold or hot for YahuWah's kingdom. There's no lukewarm. So I wanted to make that clear about people who are hired in at the last hour. Yes, they may not have the knowledge and understanding that the people who are hired in at the first hour have become very good and efficient at their work, but knowledge puffs up sometimes. Our knowledge, what we think we know, then it makes us unmerciful. And YahuWah is calling for compassion and mercy upon his household, because the people who come in last, you have to consider as like little babies, little children. And when we receive the kingdom as little children, YahuWah raises us up and grows us through his spirit, his Ruach HaKodesh, to give us life within, and that growth process takes time. And looking at someone, you can't tell whether they're spiritually immature or spiritually mature except by their fruits. You shall know them by their fruits. This is the inspection YahuWah is doing, the exam. He is inspecting our spiritual maturity. This is what the harvest is all about. This is why we have to keep waiting on the harvest, and we have to keep waiting for people to mature spiritually. And we know that in Amos 8:11 it says, "Behold, the days are coming, declares YahuWah, when I will send a famine on the land, not a famine of bread or a thirst for water, but a famine of hearing the words of YahuWah." And as I was seeking out YahuWah during this time, one of the questions that I had was the division that we all have, how divided the house of YahuWah is, whether it's, this division, names, calendars, what you look like, what you think, what you do, everybody is so divided on every issue. And if you don't agree with someone 100%, typically I find that if you don't agree with what somebody else, their view of what is right, if you don't agree with them, then oftentimes if you don't conform to their image and likeness, then they typically get upset. And I find that there's a lack of mercy and compassion in the house of YahuWah. And we know that in Messiah's hands, we have to become one stick. We have to become one house, united in love, mercy, and compassion. So in this parable, it's showing us that the first people who hired in, they grumble against the ones who come in at the last hour, rather than having a loving, compassionate, merciful heart toward them. And this is what YahuWah, it has all been about. This whole thing has been about how to love YahuWah, obey him, and love one another. The message of YahuWah, the message is so simplistic. It's a simple message. The scriptures are so simple, a child can understand, and it's the world and mankind that makes it confusing. In 2 Corinthians 11:3 it says, I am afraid, however, that just as Hawa or Eve was deceived by the serpent's cunning, your minds may be corrupted and led astray from your simple and pure devotion to HaMashiach. And that's devotion to YahuWah through our Mashiach. So as YahuWah was showing me this famine in the land, now it doesn't mean that, we won't see it in the natural, because everything is a spiritual condition of mankind. He either gives us favor and barakah, or death and destruction, and curses or favor on this earth, depending on obedience and allowing him to work in us by putting off our fleshly nature, understanding it's his work in us as we submit to him, because he's the one who's going to be esteemed through all of it. We submit to his ways, and his spirit, because of the word, becomes spirit behind it rather than just a dead letter. So it's his work in us. So let's take a look at the simplicity, the simple message of love and obedience. And why is this so hard for us to understand what YahuWah is asking of us? And when he was telling me about the famine in the land, like I said, if we see it in the natural, it's merely a spiritual condition. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual forces of wickedness. And it is all about a spiritual condition played out in the natural. And so when he tells me about the famine, he tells me it's a famine of the application of the word HaMashiach within us, that we've been so good at our knowledge of gaining knowledge and worldly wisdom, or worldly knowledge, I will say, that we forgot YahuWah's wisdom, that it matters not what people think of us, it matters what YahuWah thinks of us. It matters not what man says about us, mankind. It matters what YahuWah says about us. It matters what our relationship with him is, so that we stand firmly with what he shows us. Individually, it can be very different. Just like Noah and Abraham and different people, David and different people, Daniel, people had to stand in the midst of difficulty and persecution. And he says we will also, and our house is divided on so many different levels, and we hate each other when we don't conform to each other's image and likeness. And what he's showing me is that this is not the fruit that we should be bearing, and that we will have an inspection on our lives, and that inspection will we pass or fail depending on whether we're growing good fruits or not. So we also see that, Messiah said, our Messiah said he was going to separate the sheep from the goats in judgment. And when that judgment comes, no one knows. It could be tomorrow. No one knows. No one has a tomorrow that they're guaranteed. So here's what Messiah said. And this is why we have a famine of the word. We don't apply it. He's telling me we don't apply it. We've searched the scriptures and we think we find something in the scriptures when it all pointed to what Mashiach said, the Mashiach growing within us, actually changing the cellular structure of who we are, the genetic material. Mashiach is the template, the vine that we are supposed to grow, and we I've done it too. I've veered off in so many different paths and not focused on actually applying his word when he says that to hate one another is murder. How often do we hate people just because they're different from us? And in the kingdom, our brothers and sisters are the ones who do the will of the Father, so we know that. And do we hate our brothers and sisters? That's murder. That's a sin against Torah. So these are important things to understand. What does he require of us? Does he require our knowledge? Obviously the people hired in at the first hour were very knowledgeable at their job. You become very good at the job. You become very knowledgeable. But were they actually doing the good will and the good work in the vineyard? Were they actually productive in the vineyard because of their attitude toward the ones coming in at the last hour? And this is a final exam that he's given us time right now, a short time, to make sure we're implanting the word, the good word, and having the ruach, which gives life to it, to actually grow within us, that it's actually written inside of us. We say this all the time, and I feel like people don't really understand. They say it's written in our hearts and minds, but it's not actually growing within them. You actually can see the fruits, the lack thereof. But there are some people who are abundant in that fruitfulness. They have really, worked hard on controlling the fleshly nature and growing the spiritual life. And there are some incredible people, which are the people who have come to this channel, because you all are incredible people. And I am so grateful for you. Matthew 25, Matthew 25, beginning at verse 31. But when the Son of Man comes in his esteem and majesty and all the messengers with him, then he will sit on the throne of his honor. All the nations will be gathered before him for judgment, and he will separate them one from another as a shepherd separates his sheep from the goats. And he will put the sheep on his right in the place of honor, and the goats on his left the place of rejection. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you Baruch of my Father, you favored of YahuWah, appointed to eternal salvation, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me." Then the righteous will answer him, "Master, when did we see you hungry?" This is so lacking. Sorry. "When did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? And when did we see you as a stranger and invite you in, or naked and clothe you? And when did we see you sick or in prison and come to you?" And the king will answer and say to them, "I assure you and most solemnly say to you, to the extent that you did it for one of these brothers and sisters of mine, even the least of them, you did it for me." Then he will say to those on his left, "Leave me, be gone, you cursed ones, into the eternal fire which has been prepared for the devil and his messengers. For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not invite me in. Naked, and you did not clothe me. Sick and in prison, and you did not visit me with help or ministering care." Then they also in turn will answer, "Master, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or naked or sick or in prison and did not minister to you?" And he will reply to them, "I assure you and most solemnly say to you, to the extent that you did not do it for one of the least of these followers of mine, you did not do it for me." Then these unbelieving people will go away into eternal punishment, but those who are righteous and in right standing with YahuWah will go by his remarkable mercy into eternal, everlasting life. So we can see that YahuWah, Yahushua is going to judge. YahuWah has given that into his hands. And we really have to understand that the final exam is how we treated one another. Whether we were obedient to YahuWah, and if we're obedient to YahuWah, we would be treating each other well. 1 John 4:7, Beloved, let us love one another, for love is from YahuWah, and whoever loves has been born of YahuWah and knows YahuWah. The fruits of the Ruach are love, peace, patience, joy, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control, compassion, mercy, and humility. So we see that if we're obeying Torah in spirit and truth, we should be bearing these good fruits. We should be growing these good fruits. And Matthew 7:17, every good tree bears good fruit, but a bad tree bears bad fruit. A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, nor can a bad tree bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. Therefore, by their fruits you shall know them. What kind of fruit are we bearing? Are we griping and complaining about one another, or are we able to, bear with one another and help one another through? Is it our righteousness, or is it his righteousness in us? Is it his Ruach that helps us to overcome that fleshly nature of exalting ourselves? Because he says that those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. So I ask, are we growing that vine within us, the word? Do we have a famine within us? Because he says that those who do his Torah would be like trees planted by streams of living water that do not fear when heat comes. You won't fear when heat comes. And so, do we do the things that he's calling us to do? Or are we going to fail the inspection? And I'm so very grateful that he's given us a little time. He said to me, if we will now focus on the word, HaMashiach's words, and make sure we're planting that, letting that good soil, letting YahuWah till up our hearts and minds so that we can really receive the good word. By the power of the Ruach HaKodesh, that he would rain down upon us and produce that abundance within us, that through his Spirit we would be able to grow this abundance within us. And he's merciful to us when we humble ourselves. What he's looking for is the heart of the matter. He's not looking for our knowledge, for it says that we have to become fools to become truly wise. And, we do not overcome evil with evil. We overcome evil with good. Matthew 5:7, favored are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. And James 2:13, for judgment will be merciless to one who has shown no mercy. Mercy triumphs over judgment. Luke 6:36, be merciful just as your Father is merciful. And we know that YahuWah will have compassion on and mercy on who he has compassion and mercy for. And we understand that the word of YahuWah is the seed. It's the good seed is his word. But that word can fall on hard soil and it will never grow anything, even if it's a good word. Even if we're scattering the good seed and the good word out there. It's up to YahuWah to till the hearts. This is why we are to pray for people rather than trying to push them in the flesh, because it's YahuWah's work in our lives through prayer that he tills up the heart and mind to be able to receive the good word. That's why when we continue to fight each other in the flesh, we'll never ever grow the good word within us. That it's through love, compassion, and mercy that our heart's desire is to do the will of YahuWah and for others to do that will, and we let YahuWah do the work, because he will be esteemed in the end of all this. It will be YahuWah who's esteemed. It's not our work, it's his work in us, that we were willing and allowed him to till us up and to submit to that, and then plant that good word and actually apply it, not just be hearers of the word, but doers of the word. That we actually let that transform us into the image and likeness of our Creator. Our Mashiach is that template, and YahuWah will favor us and restore the years the locust stole. He will rain down upon us his barakah upon the land, while everyone else is in famine and spiritual drought and seeing it in the natural. He will give us abundance and favor. And he's telling us we need to make sure we're ready now. We have to implant the good word that can save our inner being. Are we actually allowing it to be a force through his Spirit? Because a seed can't do anything. The word can't do anything without Spirit behind it. To actually cut and divide and cut off that fleshly part of us. Because when we press into the word, if we have the Spirit behind it, that's when it goes in and does its spiritual circumcision upon our lives. That's the tilling up so that we can receive the good implanted word. Oftentimes it comes through suffering. If you think about a garden being tilled, we, suffer, and then we're willing to receive that word. And YahuWah is showing me that when he examines our life, were we merciful to one another? Did we help one another? Did we give each other a drink of water along the way? And that can be spiritually. And, this spiritual nourishment, that you can keep going, you can keep getting up every day and striving, that enduring till the end is keep enduring daily, never give up. Because it's, when he makes that call, we should have been ready. We should be wise ones with oil. And that's the pressing of our lives. The narrow road gets more and more narrow and more compressed. And yet it's so beautiful and wonderful. This walk is worth everything. It's worth every part of losing our fleshly lives in order to gain the spiritual, eternal. In Colossians, beginning at verse 12, so as YahuWah's own chosen people who are set apart and sanctified for his purpose, and well beloved by YahuWah himself, put on a heart of compassion and kindness, humility and gentleness and patience, which has the power to endure whatever injustice or unpleasantness comes with good temper, bearing graciously with one another, and willingly forgiving each other if one has a cause for complaint against another. Forgive one another. Do we apply that? Are we doing it? Do we really forgive one another? We should be talking to one another. And if we have problems with each other, talk about it. It's usually a misunderstanding. Beyond all these things, put on and wrap yourselves in unselfish love, which is the perfect bond of unity, for everything is bound together in agreement when each one seeks the best for others. Are we applying that? Do we desire and seek the best for others, or do we stand on our own righteousness, or do we really trust YahuWah to work through in our lives? As he is the potter, we are the clay. If we are surrendered, we don't know what he's working in someone else's life. We don't know what someone else is going through. We don't know that they've repented on their knees all night just by looking at someone. We don't know their spiritual growth and development, but by their fruits. What kind of fruit are we bearing? What is the test? The test. What are we going to look like at the final exam? Let the peace, shalom of Mashiach, the inner calm of one who walks daily with him, be the controlling factor in your hearts, deciding and settling questions that arise. To this shalom indeed you were called as members in one body of believers, and be thankful to YahuWah always. Let the spoken word of Mashiach have its home within you. Have its home within you. dwelling in your hearts and minds, permeating every aspect of your being as you teach or share spiritual things and admonish and train one another with all wisdom, singing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs with thankfulness in your heart to YahuWah. Whatever you do, no matter what it is in word or deed, do everything in the name of Hamashiach and independence on YahuWah, and giving thanks to YahuWah through our Mashiach. You know, this is what it boils down to, the final test. And the test is coming the exam is at our doorstep. And He's giving us time to really implant the word and really let it grow within us so He can pour down His Ruach upon us and grow the spiritual abundance, while everyone else, unfortunately, will be in spiritual darkness and famine of the land. Will you be a tree planted by streams of living water, who does not fear when heat comes? You bear fruit in all seasons. Romans 9:14. What shall we say then? Is there injustice with YahuWah? Certainly not. For He says to Moshe, I will have mercy on whomever I have mercy, and I will have compassion on whomever I have compassion. It's about our hearts. It's not about how perfect we are. It's about our heart's desire to be perfect for Him. That's why He gives compassion to those who have their heart's desire. They may not be perfect in their walk, but their heart's desire is perfect, and He can work with that no matter when they come in. It's about the condition of the heart to be willing to submit to YahuWah, not stand on some sort of pride. Pride and arrogance will not go into the kingdom. No one's going to go into the kingdom with pride and arrogance. And before I finish reading that scripture, there's 6 things YahuWah hates and 7 things which are an abomination. Let's go over that. 1, pride. And we know pride. Well, don't we all have pride? We have to pray that our pride goes away. We humble ourselves. That's what He wants. He wants us to be humble before Him. Pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. Pride He hates. Lying, a lying tongue. Life and death is in the power of the tongue. We need to not lie, because we are bringing evil upon this earth by lying. Number 3, shedding innocent blood. We know thou shalt not murder. And there's wickedness. There's shedding innocent blood. Our battle our war is a spiritual war. It's not against one another. We have bigger fish to fry in the spiritual realm, not one another. So shedding innocent blood, they're shedding so much innocent blood on this earth. We should be sighing and crying out to YahuWah. A heart that devises wicked plans He hates. Feet swift to run into evil. When we're quick to run after evil, even gossip, slander, wickedness with our tongue. The tongue is a mighty, powerful, destructive force. Number 6, a false witness. How often do we make an assumption about people? Now think about this. Oftentimes we judge other people wrongly. We judge them and we become a false witness against them. You know, we have to be careful about our judgments, not understanding what YahuWah is working in their life. We don't know what YahuWah is doing in someone else's life, and we judge them wrongly and we become a false witness. We have to be very careful about how we judge someone. We can judge their fruits or lack thereof, but they're standing with YahuWah. Careful. And 7, those He hates, and it's abomination, those who sow discord among brethren. Discord among brethren. So that's what I see as that last part where they're sowing discord because they're angry. They're upset. In the parable of the workers in the vineyard, they're upset because the last ones are paid first. And He was testing their hearts. It's his, it's His right to test His people. Will we pass the test? Are we going to gripe and complain about one another and the ones who come in last and they're not perfect, but they're like little children and receiving it with a perfect heart? Or the ones who have become very knowledgeable and very good at their job, but have no mercy and compassion? we need to have mercy and compassion and the right heart for this walk and obedience to our Father. And if we're obedient, we'll love one another. Continuing on with that scripture, so then YahuWah's choice is not dependent on human will, nor on human effort, the totality of human striving, but on YahuWah, who shows mercy to whomever he chooses. It is his sovereign gift. For the scriptures says, Pharaoh, I raised you up for this very purpose, to display my power in dealing with you, and so that my name, YahuWah, would be proclaimed in all the earth. So then he has mercy on whom he wills and chooses, and he hardens the heart of whom he wills. Now listen to this. He hardens the hearts. He does it. And he has mercy on whom he chooses. Because it's a desire. It's all about what we desire. Do we desire to be on the throne or him? Is he the one who's sovereign, or are we? He's the one who puts his ruach within us. He's the one who writes it within our hearts and minds. He's the one who gives us a new spirit to do his will and his ways. He does the work in us. We have to submit to that and understand and have respect for others for their walk with him. You will say to me then, why does he still blame me for sinning? For who, including myself, has ever resisted his will and purpose? On the contrary, who are you, O man, who answers arrogantly back to YahuWah and dares to defy him? Will the thing which is formed say to him who formed it, why have you made me like this? Does the potter not have the right over the clay, to make from the same lump of clay one object for honorable use, something beautiful and distinctive, and another for common use, something ordinary and menial? What if YahuWah, although willing to show his terrible wrath and to make his power known, has tolerated with great patience the objects of his wrath, which are prepared for destruction? Think of the wheat and the tares. And what if he has done so to make known the riches of his honor to the objects of his mercy, which he has prepared beforehand for his esteem, including us, whom he also called, not only from among the Hebrews, but also from among the Gentiles, just as he says in the writings of the prophet Hosea, I will call those who were not my people, and I will call her who is not beloved, beloved. And it shall be that in the place where it was said to them, you are not my people, there they shall be called children of the living Elohim. And Yashayahu calls out concerning Yasharel, though the number of the sons of Yasharel be like the sand of the sea, it is only the remnant, a small believing minority, that will be saved from YahuWah's judgment. For YahuWah will execute his word upon the earth. He will conclude his dealings with mankind completely and without delay. It is as Yashayahu foretold. If YahuWah of hosts had not left us seed, future generations from which a believing remnant of Yasharel came, we would have become like Sodom and would have resembled Gomorrah, totally rejected and destroyed. You know, brothers and sisters, it's all about the heart. If we submit to him, then he will work in us his good will and pleasure. Hasatan has no power over YahuWah's people. YahuWah's people are the ones who curse themselves by speaking evil and wicked against one another and against our own lives. We have to be careful. Life and death is in the power of the tongue. How we treat one another is the final exam. Will we pass our test? I say, when YahuWah tells me that we have time right now to plant the good seed and apply it and pray for his rain, his spiritual rain to pour down upon us so that we're abundant and fruitful for his kingdom, that we will be wise virgins and we will be wise ones for his kingdom, and we will be ready whenever that day comes. And if we'll do this, there's a barakah upon our house and upon our land, which is our life. So let's implant the word of HaMashiach within us. Let's be doers of the word, not hearers. Let's have mercy and compassion upon one another and love for one another. That it's not where we've been, it's where we're going. Destination, eternal Yerushalayim. It's not where we've been, not what we've done, But now it's about the right heart with YahuWah, the simplicity of the message. Love YahuWah, obey Him, and love one another. Well, brothers and sisters, this has probably been long enough. Much love to you. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will catch you on the next one, Yah willing.